So my name is John Grzyb. I've been a client of Freescale since 2016 or 2017, graduated client. So I worked with them through two different companies. The first company I had read Scaling Up and kind of really liked the framework and began looking for a coach. And I probably went through a 3 or 4 month process where I met with 8 to 10 coaches in person, and through that process learned a little bit more about the backgrounds of the coaches and the way they engage with their clients. What really stood out to me with Rich and Wayne and the Freescale system was that they were practitioners first and foremost. A lot of the coaches doing this work had never kind of grown a company, scaled a company, exited a company. And I found the unique combination of the way Rich and Wayne kind of had different skill sets bringing to the table, a team of two coaches rather than just one. With if you get to know them, they have a very complementary skill set in the way they approach things. Being practitioners and then being two of them with really complementary skill sets was unique amongst the 8 or 10 different coaches that I talked to. Really appreciated their approach and started working with them for at a company called Corigin, based out of New York City. It was a real estate owner, operator, and developer, kind of vertically integrated. We were doing acquisition and repositioning of apartment buildings in New York City, and it built a management team in-house to service those buildings. And we had kind of experienced a decent amount of growth. We're starting to get some of the growing pains associated with needing a little bit more role clarity and structure in the business. And that was kind of what kind of encouraged me to look into the coaches and eventually found Rich and Wayne. They helped us over a 2-year period or so add a tremendous amount of rigor and structure to what we were doing with the business. And I think one of the key learnings for me was being able to maintain agility through that process while adding the structure and rigor, role clarity. Where are we going? How are we going to get there? And really the value in having a coach or two coaches in this case who are coaching the entire leadership team, not just a one-on-one coach for the CEO or president of the business, but someone who can help you as the leader of the organization see where the blind spots are in your team and kind of elevate the leadership capabilities of the entire executive team as we're going along this journey together. This is really like the secret sauce, if there is some, right? I think at the end of the day, the way that Rich and Wayne and the Freescale process approaches an organization over what's called a 2 to 4 year period, it allows the leader of an organization to really become the leader of an organization as opposed to constantly firefighting, right? You're investing the time in getting the right people in the right seats and establishing the right operating rhythm and putting the right organizational structure in place and effectively an operating system to run your business on a quarterly, monthly, annual basis, such that you as the CEO or president of the business can spend more time working on the business as opposed to working in the business and simply firefighting. Pretty early in our engagements, we began thinking about what we wanted the vision of the organization to be, the purpose of the organization, the core values, building a long-term vision and goals, and then backing into how we were going to get there. And that is simply the reality of kind of being in a firefight, high growth business. You often don't make the time to work on the business in that way. And so I think that ultimately my leadership changed very much from like being in the trenches, constantly putting out fires, being reactive, to investing. And it is an investment. It's not, you can't call Rich and Wayne and expect to solve your problems in 3 months or 6 months. It's really going to be a 2 to 4 year process, I think, to get these systems in place. And you're investing in the organization, in the leadership of your organization, in the people, so that you as the leader can spend more time thinking strategically, working on the business as opposed to being so much in the business. And really part of what Rich and Wayne taught me to do much better was to elevate the capacity of the leaders inside the organization and really tap into that managerial leverage. So their coaching inspired me to become better at coaching the leaders in our organization, which therefore really increased the management capacity of our companies overall. Structure and creativity being kind of a zero-sum game, right? The more structure that you're adding, the less agility and the less creativity are going to be alive in an organization. And I think the way that you showed us to build operational rigor and structure, but also do it in a way that you keep your eyes and ears open. You constantly have to be responding to change because change is just an inevitable piece of running a business. How do you maintain your agility and creativity? And how can you know when to stay on that plan versus when to adapt that plan and respond to changes that are happening in your environment? I think was one of the key takeaways for me. And really, it was just, it seemed like there was always a crisis every 6 months. There was always something happening, whether it be COVID or a cash crunch or losing a major customer or losing a great employee for one reason or another, right? There's always some sort of crisis brewing. And the takeaway from me in working with you guys across a couple of different companies and a lot of different challenges was that instituting rigor and structure is not always at the expense of the agility and creativity of the organization if you can do it the right way. And you guys really taught me and us as the leadership teams in both of those instances and how to do that. We made investments into the organization that created really a sustainable business with multiple layers of management and an executive team that I would feel comfortable putting next to any executive team at any of our competitors and saying that we had the best folks in the room without question, right? And so when in that particular instance, when a private equity buyer started looking at the business, it was pretty easy for us to demonstrate how are we adding value? How do we set goals for ourselves on a go-forward basis? What did our goals look like last year, and how did we fare in accomplishing those goals? Who's doing what inside the organization? We had begun to put written processes in place that were repeatable and standardized across multiple geographies. And so, it's hard to peg exactly what the return on investment is at the end of the day, or was at the end of the day, for those types of investments that improve the overall enterprise of the value of the organization, because there are repeatable processes in place. We have an operating system in place, and we have multiple layers of management that can continue to execute at a very high level. And so, I don't know exactly what the return on investment was from a percentage or multiple basis, but I can say it was well beyond the cost that we put in, both in terms of direct cost to coaching, as well as the very significant time that we devoted to implementing these systems across the organization. The coaching, this is where the coaching is, I think, most important at the end of the day, because I've led 2 or 3 companies under this operating system, and I feel like I've seen some of the movies play out. But Rich and Wayne, now through their bank of experience and the constant pulse that they have on a multitude of different companies experiencing the same crisis like a COVID, can bring together not only their past playbooks of experience to understand what happened with other high growth companies during specific crises, but now you're exposed to this network of other clients who are also experiencing a similar thing like COVID at the same time. And you get really good insight into how and when our CEOs communicating in this different world where we're not sitting in the office with all of our employees like we were previously. What are the best practices? What's working? What's not working? What are the recommendations coming out of the various clients that Rich and Wayne are working with during those times, right? And then also, so it's the real-time feedback from other clients that Freescale is working with when something like that happens, combined with the fact that now Rich and Wayne have seen so many different crises across different companies at different stages of growth, combined with their own experience of having scaled a company and exited a company, that's a wealth of knowledge and experience that you as a CEO don't have access to without the type of coaching that Rich and Wayne provide. I think I'll use an analogy, which is I'm a terrible golfer. I actually don't like to golf that much, but you could pick up a bunch of books and watch a lot of videos on golf. But if you don't have a coach there telling you what they're seeing real time with your swing, you're probably never going to become a really good golfer. And that analogy was spot on to my experience with Rich and Wayne. I had read all of the books. I had learned as much as I could without a coach. But in addition to some of the pieces of value that I mentioned previously about the Rich and Wayne experience and working with Freescale, is that sometimes when you're in a really difficult situation, you need someone to give you a nudge to do something that you otherwise know you need to do, but you're holding back on doing so because you know how painful and difficult it's going to be. And I probably had, through 2 different companies, I've probably had a half dozen experiences that fit that bill, that were always related to the soft things, right? It's not a numbers thing. These are soft, highly personal, difficult circumstances that as a leader you have to face and deal with on a regular basis. And having the coach there by your side, having someone that you can bounce ideas off of and how you're going to handle a situation, down to the tactics about what you're going to say in those difficult conversations and situations, I found to be invaluable. And perhaps I would have gotten to a similar situation, similar decision, and gone in a similar direction eventually. But having the coaches there, particularly the way Rich and Wayne approach things in a very thoughtful, high EQ way, to get you in a position where you feel more confident in making those decisions sooner, created a tremendous amount of value, I think, for our businesses. And if I take those roughly half a dozen difficult decisions that I made while I was being coached by Rich and Wayne, pretty shortly thereafter, I recognized that I probably should have made them even sooner than I did make them, and was very grateful to have a little bit of a nudge when I probably needed it most. I've spent time in the military, and I spent time leading a couple of different companies, and I attribute Rich and Wayne a big portion of the development that I've experienced in my personal and professional growth, and being able to grow and lead a company. And I'm tremendously grateful to both of you for everything that you've done for me over the years.